Let's talk about reading comprehension. Reading by the third grade is considered critical to a child's educational development, and as a result, more and more states are requiring students to be held back in third grade, to make sure they can read well enough to learn. In fact, the number of states requiring third graders to be held back if they can't read increased to 13 in the last year. But is holding students back the solution, or does it present risks? Well, joining me to discuss this are Anjali Deshpande, a doctoral student at New York University, Martin West, professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education in Cambridge, Mass., Mary Kay Hoal, a mother of 5 who has 1 child who skipped a grade and 2 she chose to hold back. And she joins us from UC Davis, California. And we also have Amy Elias, educational consultant and mother of 3 in New York, New York. We do have to talk about the sort of social development of a child and what it feels like to be held back a grade. Mary Kay, this is something that worked for you. Can you talk about your personal experience a little bit?
Yes, my oldest daughter, at the advice of a Montessori teacher, they had her skip a grade and skip, in fact, kindergarten, go right into 1st grade. And all through her elementary school years, she absolutely struggled. She struggled emotionally. She struggled in the classroom. It was stressful on her. It was stressful on the family. She was always in tutoring. And then, we hadn't thought about it at the time, but when it came to high school, she was hanging out and in a class with kids and teens 1 to 2 years older than her. So when it came to our 2 younger boys, who are now 13 and 11, and we saw the opportunity, they were struggling a bit. We had them repeat both kindergarten and 1st grade. Now, both of my boys now could be a grade ahead, but my husband and I were so pleased that we made the choice on our own to have them repeat the grade because they're more confident. They have better learning skills. They're very excited about how well they do in school. And that's given them a lot of confidence. So I'm glad we made that decision because it was just a decision regarding our daughter that we regret we made, and we very much didn't want to make it again.
I want to pull up this HuffPost education page that spurned this conversation, looking at repeating grades, more states requiring students to be held back. Is it the right thing to do? But I'd love to just get a little bit better of a sense of what the movement for reading by 3rd grade is all about. Marty, can you speak to that?
We know that acquiring strong reading skills by 3rd grade is a key predictor of students' academic success, not just in reading, but across all subjects. We know that it's a strong predictor of their likelihood to graduate from high school and go on to a successful career. And so this has spurred a lot of activity to try and make sure that students acquire strong reading skills in the early grades. This includes early childhood education policies, early diagnosis and intervention policies. And the question that comes up in this context is, what do you do when those efforts to improve reading skills early on either fail to occur or they're unsuccessful? Do you retain students or do you continue to pass them along? And increasingly, states are adopting policies intended to increase the share of students who are retained if they're found to be lacking proficient skills by 3rd grade.
Age is sort of an arbitrary way to organize kids in school. The first schools were organized based on age because in post-industrial America, they didn't have any better way to organize kids, as cities were burgeoning and needed to put kids in classrooms. And so not much has changed in the last century, and now we have schools that are organized by age groups, which doesn't necessarily guarantee that the students are in a developmentally appropriate environment. So I feel that, unless if we're going to have students repeating grades, then I'm not sure what an additional year of school will do over and above what was done before, unless there's some other intervention in place. And so as an education consultant, I'm in schools in New York City, in a lot of urban schools, and some of the things I see are alarming. So for instance, in one school, in a middle school, the overage students from the 8th grade were segregated into a classroom that was held in the basement of the school, and the kids were freezing all day long. They were wearing their puffy jackets because it was too cold. And so they were completely segregated from the rest of the students, and they were put in the room with the 1st-year teacher. And so I'm not really sure if holding students back in that case was appropriate for their needs.